Enroll now at Australia's Sydney Met and win a scholarship of up to $15,000. Apply today.
Tonight on First at 9 this Saturday the 13th of April 2024. The festive moment. Sri Lanka celebrates the Sinhala and Tamil New Year. President Ranil Wickremesinghe calls on the public to steer the nation forward along the path of progress. Hot and cold. Met Department forecasts heavy rain in the southern parts of Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, heat advisory issued to the northern parts of the island. A second term. IMF Executive Board approves Kristalina Georgieva's second term as the Global Lenders Managing Director.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now, as you eagerly anticipate the dawn of the new year, we take you straight to your weather update. Many areas across Sri Lanka, including Colombo, have been experiencing heavy rainfall during the past few days. The Met Department expects the prevailing inclement weather patterns to continue throughout the day tomorrow as well. The department also issued an advisory for severe lightning to several areas, including the Western Province. In stark contrast, meanwhile, to the rest of the country, hot weather was reported from the northern regions of the island. The Met Department, taking this into consideration, issued an amber heat advisory for areas spanning across the northern and northwestern provinces.
As predicted by the Department of Meteorology, several areas across Sri Lanka experienced heavy rainfall over the past few days. The highest rainfall recorded during the past 24 hours was reported from Bandaragama, recording 71 millimeters of rainfall. Heavy rains meanwhile were observed in the suburbs of Colombo both yesterday and today. Meanwhile, in its forecast for tomorrow, the Met Department highlighted that showers or thunder showers are expected from several places in western, Sabaragamuwa, southern, central, northwestern and over provinces. Fairly heavy showers of about 75 millimeters are likely at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces. Further, misty conditions are expected from certain areas in the western, central, Sabaragamuwa and over provinces, as well as in Galle and Mathura districts during the morning hours of tomorrow. The Met Department meanwhile issued an amber advisory for severe lightning to areas within the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces and to the Galle and Mathura districts. As such, the general public is requested to take adequate measures to minimize damages caused by lightning activity. As many areas are experiencing torrential rainfall, the northern regions of Sri Lanka experienced hot weather. Taking this into consideration, the Met Department issued an amber heat index advisory to the northern and northwestern provinces and the Colombo, Gampaha, Anuradhapura and Trincomalee districts. The heat index advisory will be in effect throughout tomorrow. According to the Met Department, the sun is going to be directly over the latitudes of Sri Lanka due to its apparent northward relative motion from the 5th to the 15th of April this year. The nearest areas of Sri Lanka over which the sun is overhead during the course of tomorrow will be Nainathil, Punkuduthil, Mandaithil, Manalkadu and Uduturai at about 12:10 p.m.
Can you feel it? New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
Dulux. Now, the Sri Lankan rupee has emerged as the top performing currency among emerging markets during the first quarter of 2024. Citing Bloomberg market data, the President's Media Division added that the rupee boasted a remarkable spot return of over 7% by outpacing the emerging market currencies during this period. Earlier this month, it was reported that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka had allowed the rupee to appreciate from $360 to 300 now after a surrender rule imposed on commercial banks to force sell dollars to the central bank against new rupees while taking out of the interbank forex market was lifted in March 2023. However, a surrender rule imposed on exporters to sell to banks by the central bank remains in place, constraining the ability to delay or sell dollars as they wish at the best price. Now in other news, Inspector General of the Police Deshabandhu Tennakun denied claims levelled against the Sri Lanka police by Amnesty International in a recently published report which alleged that the police used unlawful force during the policing of protests that took place in Sri Lanka between March 2022 and June 2023. Addressing media, the IGP said they are ready to investigate the claim and identify wrongdoers, if any, to take necessary action.
In its recently published report, Ready to Suppress Any Protest, Amnesty International stated that they analysed the use of force during the policing of 30 protests that took place in Sri Lanka between March 2022 and June 2023. Amnesty International stated that their research shows a pattern in the unlawful use of tear gas and water cannons and the misuse of batons by Sri Lankan law enforcement officials, with video evidence revealing that in at least 17 protests, more than half of those analysed, the conduct of law enforcement officials fell well short of international law and standards on the use of force. Amnesty International's Regional Director for South Asia, Smriti Singh, noted that from the outset, Sri Lanka's police approached the 2022-2023 protests assuming that they would be unlawful and violent and that they would need to use force to repress them. She stated that the police failed to recognize that people have the right to peacefully protest and that the authorities have a duty to facilitate and protect protests. She added that instead they targeted, chased, and beat largely peaceful protesters. Further, Amnesty highlighted that Sri Lanka's law enforcement officials engaged in the violent repression of protests must be held accountable for committing widespread human rights violations. However, Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakun denied those claims while addressing the media.
ඒකේ සඳහන් වෙනවා අරකල සමයේ පොලිසිය විරෝධතාවයන් පාලනය කිරීමේදී බලය අවබෝධ කිරීම කරලා තියෙනවා කියලා. ඒකේ ඔබතුමාගේ ස්ථාවරය මොකක්ද?
මම දන්නේ නැහැ එතුමන්ලා විසින් ඒ වගේ දෙයක් ප්‍රකාශ කරේ කුමන කරුණ.
I don't know the basis upon which they made such allegations. I do not know whether they have facts to prove those allegations. I also do not know if they were misled into making such a statement based on false information. However, if some claims that their rights were violated as claimed, we are ready to conduct an investigation through the Human Rights Commission, any other independent commission, or through an internal institution within the police service. We will consequently take necessary action.
පරීක්ෂණ පවත්වලා කවුරු එහෙම කරපු කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවනම් ඒ අය සම්බන්ධ සුසු ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්න අපි ලැස්ති. අපි අකණ්ඩවම කරගෙන යනවා මේ සිංහල අලුත් අවුරුදු.
The Yukti operation and operations to tackle the underworld will continue despite the Sinhala and Tamil New Year.
හා සමානව ඒ කරගෙන ගිය ආකාරයටම කරනවා.
Now, a few minutes ago, Sri Lankans marked the movement of the sun from Pisces to Aries and celebrated the dawn of the new year in accordance with Sinhala and Tamil customs and rituals. On behalf of Other Derana 24, let me bring you the season's greetings and wish you a very happy and prosperous new year, first of all. Now, Sri Lankans across the country are celebrating New Year rituals that have stood the test of time this evening, despite the extreme hardships and challenges posed to their livelihoods given the dire economic constraints in the country at the moment. As Sri Lanka celebrates the dawn of the new year, President Ranil Wickremesinghe wishes all Sri Lankans a happy new year and claims that social relations and solidarity emerge as fundamental pillars essential for steering the nation forward along the path of progress and prosperity.
The Sinhala and Tamil New Year, also known as the Alutauruda in Sinhala and Puthandu in Tamil, is a festive time in Sri Lanka and is one of the most significant cultural celebrations in the Sri Lankan calendar. The New Year dawns as the sun transitions from Pisces to Aries, marking the end of the harvesting season. This celestial movement is celebrated with a series of traditions, beliefs, food and fun games. This year, the inauspicious time or Nonagadaya, the time between the end of the old year and the dawn of the new year, was at 2:41 p.m. earlier today. During this period, People stop tending to their household chores, studies, business activities, and stop consuming food as well. This period is solely devoted to engage in pious religious activities and seek blessings in the solace of religion. The inauspicious time is expected to end tomorrow at 3:29 am. The Sinhala and Tamil New Year dawned today at 9:05 pm a few minutes ago. Subsequently, the auspicious time to light the hearth and prepare the first meal of the new year falls at 11:06 pm today. At 12:06 am tomorrow, Sri Lankans will mark the inauguration of official duties of the new year, the first monetary transaction or Ganudanu Kirima, and will also consume the new year's first meal. After observing such customs and traditions, Sri Lankans will prepare for the customary anointing of oil set to be carried out on the 15th of April at 10:17 am. Finally, those engaged in employment are expected to leave home at the auspicious time of 6:52 am on the 17th of April. As Sri Lankans celebrate the New Year with much pomp and circumstance, President Ranil Wickremesinghe issued his New Year message to the public. In his message, the head of state said that the progression of nations, countries, and the global community is propelled by the perpetual cycle of renewal, where innovative ideas are nurtured and novel creations come to fruition. He further added that during the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, people engage in a profound renewal of self, centering our focus on nurturing bonds, and highlighted the significance of this pivotal point, as it serves as a poignant reminder of the essence of human connection and communal solidarity. President Wickremesinghe went on to say that social relations and solidarity emerge as fundamental pillars essential for steering the nation forward along the path of progress and prosperity. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, in his message, reminisced the service rendered by the farmers to produce food for the country in the face of the recent food and economic crisis. He further went on to say that such pandemics, economic and social crises were not witnessed during the past, and added that it is pivotal to start a new year embraced with new concepts, not to witness them again and not to leave them for the next generation. The Premier stated that the real right of the New Year belongs to the children, and it is the duty of everyone to preserve the wonder of the New Year for future generations. Leader of the opposition Sajith Premadasa meanwhile recalled the traumatic events experienced by the country during the past and extended his hopes of forming a government aspired by people in the country, and prosperity will come again to the motherland. In his message, the opposition leader added that it is high time for everyone to join hands in order to get rid of the existing bankruptcy and make the country with a self-sufficient economic pattern and create a proud nation with peace, happiness and comfort. Further in his message, Premadasa highlighted the challenge posed on the lives of the people to conclude the new normalization in the country and to reintroduce the life standard prevailed in the country, and he requested everyone to rally to put an end to this dark age.
Now, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya revealed that 10 kilos of rice will be dispersed per household to over 3 million low-income earning families using 12 billion rupees of state revenue. Addressing recent accusations that the government will misappropriate tax revenue if it uses up such funds to provide relief, the State Minister claimed that such concerns arose only in the past due to inefficient management of tax revenue.
We
are not engaging in politics. We are executing our responsibility towards the country. We are trying to meet the country's needs. These are difficult times. Many are of the view that we need to protect those who have fallen below the poverty line and that we should expand the social safety net. Therefore, we intend to spend around 12 billion rupees and distribute 10 kilos of rice per household to around 3 million families in April and in March as well. Tax revenue is the income of the state. The problem lied with inefficient management of tax revenue in the past. Back then too, the President urged the same people who make allegations now to implement a similar program. However, they couldn't implement the program since the management of tax revenue was inefficient. Today we have been able to manage tax revenue efficiently such that we increase the revenue of state sector employees, provide relief, make miscellaneous payments and manage our debt. Those MPs who make allegations now have always done so. when we brought in amendments to Sri Lanka's tax legislation. They also voted against it. When we are trying to provide relief now, they claim that we are misappropriating tax revenue. We need to understand the state of the opposition at the moment. If they ridicule the disbursement of 20 kilos of rice of low-income earning families, that depicts the incompetence of the opposition.
2 people were injured in a shooting reported from Hambegamuwa last night. The motive behind the shooting, which took place during a party at a house, is yet to be established. Meanwhile, a train derailed at the Kalathura railway station this morning, inconveniencing many travellers taking trains along the coastal line. With that, let's take a look at other local news in brief.
A lorry travelling from Ballymadda to Nuwara veered off the road in Ballymadda and crashed into a motorbike and a tipper. It was revealed that the driver of the lorry had been under the influence of alcohol during the time of the accident. In the Haburana Diulvava Reserve, meanwhile, a father-son duo and another individual engaged in illicit liquor production and distribution were taken into police custody. 4 barrels containing Goda were also taken into custody of the Haburana police. The raid was conducted in line with the Yukti operation, which was launched to curb the island-wide distribution of narcotic substances. In other news, we received footage of a group of wild elephants damaging 2 shops in Ulpatagama, Hasalaka.
Now, parliamentarian Vajra Abeyewardena claims that the country should be grateful to President Ranil Wickremesinghe for resurrecting the once collapsed country. At a media conference, he also mentioned that Sri Lankan representatives in Washington, D.C. are currently discussing Sri Lanka's future with the IMF and other organizations.
While swiftly reviving the country within a short span of time, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has worked to uplift the people of Sri Lanka during this new year. Even today, as we celebrate the new year season, Sri Lankan representatives in Washington, D.C. are currently discussing the country's road ahead with the IMF and other international lending institutions. If we want to stand out as a powerful nation in Asia and around the world, we have to move forward, guided by a proper policy framework. There is no other way forward. We will put forward the necessary legal infrastructure to pave the way for Sri Lanka. I hope that this new year, people will refrain from making false statements in anticipation of various positions and other privileges. My message is that the entire nation must be grateful to incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe this year.
Welcome back. Now, Sri Lanka has incurred nearly ₹1 trillion in income tax expenditure from 2022 to 2023 in various sectors spanning from personal income taxes to customs duties. Citing data by key tax collecting authorities, the Ministry of Finance claims that the bulk of such tax expenditure were incurred in the value-added tax front, accounting to 57% of the total tax expenditure, while customs duties tax expenditure followed at 33%. However, noting the recent tax amendments and revisions to Sri Lanka's tax legislation, the Finance Ministry claims that from 2023 onwards, tax expenditure is expected to decrease.
Tax expenditure are estimates of total revenue foregone as a result of exclusions, exemptions or deductions from the tax base to provide special credit, preferential tax rates or deferred tax liability. The government forgoes such tax revenue with the intention of achieving social and economic objectives. Outlining the specific details of Sri Lanka's tax expenditure during the past year, the Fiscal Policy Department of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Stabilisation and National Policies published a comprehensive report titled The Tax Expenditure Statement. According to the report, the total personal income tax expenditure for the year 2021 to 2022 stood at ₹11.543 billion. The total tax expenditure to generate personal income tax as such included ₹5.816 billion by way of relief and qualifying payments and ₹5.727 billion by way of tax exemptions. Meanwhile, on the corporate income tax front from 2022 to 2023, total tax expenditure stood at ₹87.733 billion, made up of ₹86.575 billion in concessionary rates and ₹1.158 billion in tax exemptions. The Finance Ministry also noted that the increase of corporate income tax rate from 24% to 30% and the removal of sector-specific concessionary rates were implemented with effect from the 1st of October 2022. The tax expenditure for value-added tax during 2022 to 2023 was reported at ₹554.35 billion. Of the total VAT tax expenditure incurred, 447.05 billion rupees corresponded to non-BOI companies, while the BOI companies accounted for 107.3 billion rupees. Drawing attention to the significant disparity in the tax expenditure between BOI and non-BOI companies, the Minister of Finance highlighted that VAT incentives are mostly enjoyed by non-BOI companies compared to BOI companies. Revealing the facts and figures on a key contributor to tax expenditure, the Minister of Finance revealed that tax expenditure on customs duties for 2023 stood at 324.749 billion rupees. The BOI sector contributed 313.64 billion rupees to its total tax expenditure, while trade agreements accounted for 11.101 billion rupees. Accordingly, a grand total of 978,383 billion rupees were incurred as the expenditure during the 2022 to 2023 period. On an aggregate basis, the Minister of Finance outlined the largest contributor tax expenditure in the year 2022 to 2023 was the value-added tax at 57%, while customs duties followed at 33%. However, noting the recent tax policy reforms, including the removal of vast majority of VAT exemptions from the 1st of January this year, the Minister of Finance stated that the tax expenditure estimated from 2023 onwards is expected to be significantly lower.
Now in other news, today the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund selected Kristalina Georgieva as the IMF Managing Director for a second 5-year term starting on the 1st of October this year. Before the final decision, the Executive Board of the IMF held several discussions with Kristalina Georgieva, who was nominated as the only candidate for the position of the IMF Managing Director. The coordinators of the board made a statement saying that Georgieva held strong and agile leadership during her term while navigating a series of major global shocks. Georgieva is the 12th Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. And with that, let's take a look at the corporate news segment for the evening.
Hotel Sigiriya plc recently announced the changes made to the directorate of the company. Accordingly, Stefan Furkan was appointed to the board of directors as a non-executive independent director with effect from the 8th of April. In its corporate disclosure, the company added that the newly appointed director does not hold any shares in the company as at date of his appointment. In the meantime, Lanka Developments plc announced the dealings made by its company directors. Anushman Rajaratnam, who serves as a non-executive director of the company, disposed a total of 232,000 shares at 16 rupees and 50 cents per share. The relevant transaction took place on the 4th of April and it was notified to the board of directors on the 10th of April. In other corporate news, Aitken Spence Travels secured the category award in the hospitality and tourism sector at the esteemed CPM Best Management Practices Company Awards 2024. The award celebrates the company's managerial expertise, market leadership, and business acumen for performance. The Best Management Practices Company Awards is an awards program spanning over 21 business sectors, aiming to acknowledge both public and private sector companies for their organizational growth and success while displaying integrity and accountability for their operations.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Other Derana First at 9. Stay in touch with us on www.otherderana.lk for the latest developments around the clock. Wishing you a very happy and prosperous New Year once again. I thank you for staying with us. Have a great night. For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit otherderana.lk.